Hi everyone, this is Chris from A Bar Above, and I brought the Beast out today to show you a few different ways of making sodas for your bar program. So I've tried my hand at soda making a couple different times with mixed reviews, some success, and a lot of failure. So what I'm going to do now is explain to you 3 different techniques I can utilize to make sodas. So the very first technique is definitely the easiest, and this involves essentially making a puree out of some form of fruit and then reducing it down. What we want to do is we want to take flavors and condense them as much as possible with some sugar. And so what we're going to do is when we want to make our soda, we're going to squeeze out our syrup and add the soda water to it and basically have a flavored sparkling water. So the second technique is definitely the most elaborate and the most dangerous. The reason it's the most elaborate is because you have a lot of variables you have to control, and you have to be very patient and detail-oriented. So this process involves utilizing something like this, which is champagne yeast. You could also utilize wine yeast or beer yeast as well. Some form of sweet water. It could be a flavored simple syrup, it could be a fruit juice. Allow it to ferment, and you have to be, like I said, you have to be extremely patient and wait a couple days and really control the environment in which the juice or sweet water ferments. Now the reason I say it's the most dangerous is if you allow the fermentation to go too long, it'll start to turn into alcohol. Also, if you don't have the right containers, what could happen is, like exactly what happened to me, they can explode. So if you're going to be using yeast as far as making sodas, what I would recommend is to use 2-liter bottles of soda because they're rated to hold a lot of pressure. The mistake that I made is I went to the container store and bought some flip-top bottles that can't handle a lot of pressure. So the result was I allowed the fermentation to go too long, pressure built up inside of the bottle, and they literally exploded. So I came home and there was glass everywhere and my dog was cowering in the corner. I'm not kidding, that actually happened. Now the last process is actually a balance between the two. It's super easy. You're utilizing something that gives you instant results and you don't have to be that exact with it. It's something that I really enjoy, and granted, if you're not doing any kind of a clarification to the products that you're going to carbonate, it's going to make a little bit of a mess, but by no means is it going to explode all over your counter. So that's the step that we're going to do now. I'm going to show you how I've made successful juices in the past and give you some of the benefits and drawback about this process. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to show you the exact process that I go through when I make celery soda. And like I said, it's very easy and it's a lot of fun. So we're going to fire up my juicer here. I'm going to make some celery juice and it's going to get really loud. Now that we have our celery juice made, we're going to want to strain this out as much as possible. When we go to carbonate this in our soda stream, any small particles that are floating in the bottle are going to cause what they call nucleation sites. And those sites are actually going to cause a lot of activity as far as carbonation goes. It's going to create a lot of bubbles around it. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to double filter this. So what I'm actually going to be utilizing is my souring ingredient for the soda is actually a product called Sudachi juice. Now Sudachi juice has a lot of similar characteristics to lime, but it brings a lot more complexity to your drinks. So what this is going to bring is a little bit more of the cumin and kind of that peppercress and arugula kind of qualities that I think are going to go really well with celery. Now if I were making a soda with flavors and ingredients that I've never worked with before, I would go about it with the same exact mentality that I went with cocktail design, and that is you have your flavor and now you're going to balance it with your sweet and your sour. Now there's 2 things to keep in mind with sodas is that you need to add a little bit of water, because if you just utilize juices and sweeteners, it's going to be way too intense. So you're going to be watering this down considerably. The other thing to keep in mind is anytime you carbonate something, you're adding acid to the system. So you don't want it to be as balanced as if it were to go out as a drink to a guest. You actually want it to be a little more on the sweet side or the watery side, because there's going to be a little bit of acid that's created by that carbonation. So we've added the celery juice, the sudachi, and the agave nectar to this bottle. Now we're just about ready to carbonate, and all we have to do is add our water. But something to consider and remember when you're beginning to carbonate is that the colder that the liquids are in this bottle, the more carbon dioxide it can hold. The only thing left is actually to carbonate our liquid. If you already have a SodaStream device, the rest is pretty simple. You can also use a whipped cream canister with CO2 to do much smaller batches. I've actually modified my SodaStream to accept paintball canisters instead of the regular slim 9-ounce CO2. And the only thing that you need to adapt it to accept paintball canisters is this little device here. I'll go ahead and link to where you can buy these online at the bottom of this post. So that noise means that there's the maximum amount of carbon dioxide in this bottle now. So from here on out, it's going to get really exciting. There's a lot of solids still left in this bottle, and this is going to show you why we want to clarify juices if you're going to do bottle carbonated juices. So what's going to happen from here on out is there's going to be a violent rush for the air inside of this canister to rush out, and it's basically going to go everywhere it can. So here's where things get fun. So there you have it. We've made our celery and sudachi soda, and we've also made a pretty considerable mess. Now that last step I did on purpose as to demonstrate one really good point, and that is we did not go through the clarification process with this soda, and that was the result. We did the best we could by running it through a coffee filter to get as many particles out of solution as possible, but it still reacted the same way. Clarification will definitely take care of that problem, and it's so important if you're going to be utilizing any kind of carbonating system. Now there's a couple resources that I would highly recommend if you want to learn more about carbonating. The first is a gentleman on YouTube by the name of Brian Johnson. He just released an entire series on carbonating and with a Perlini system, and it's fascinating, so I highly recommend that you check that out. I'll provide a link down at the bottom here. The other thing that I'm really excited about is that Jeffrey Morgenthaler is getting back into blogging, and his latest post in January is basically how to build your own carbonating rig for very, very cheap. So the fact that he's out there blogging again and contributing to our community is really exciting, and I hope you all check it out. I'll provide a link to that as well at the bottom of this page. So we'll have some more exciting topics and in the future, but until then, I'm going to go ahead and clean up this giant mess, and I hope you guys have a great shift, and cheers. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, find us on Google+, or visit us at abarabove.com.